The day that changed everything. The afternoon sun was dipping low over the horizon, painting the sky with warm shades of orange and gold. A soft breeze moved through the open road as Sandra Bullock pulled into a small gas station just outside Santa Fe, New Mexico. It was supposed to be a quiet stop on a long road trip, nothing more than a few minutes to refuel, stretch her legs, and grab a bottle of water before heading back on the highway. But fate had other plans. The gas station was nearly empty when she arrived. A dusty pickup truck sat parked near the convenience store, and a lone car idled by the air pump. It was peaceful, almost too peaceful, until the rumble of engines shattered the silence. 5 motorcycles roared into the station, their chrome glinting in the fading sunlight. The riders, clad in black leather and dark sunglasses, swung off their bikes with the casual arrogance of people who had never been told no. They laughed loudly, slapped each other on the back, and immediately made their presence known. Sandra tried not to pay attention. She focused on filling her tank, her eyes on the numbers as they climbed on the screen. She had dealt with rude strangers before. It came with the territory of fame. But there was something different about the way these men looked at her. Their eyes lingered too long. Their smiles were the sharp double quotes. Well, one of them drawled, sauntering closer. Look who's graced us with her presence. Isn't that the actress from those movies? Sandra kept her tone polite, but firm. Just here to get gas. Oh, come on now, another one said, circling around her car. Don't be shy. We're just trying to be friendly. I appreciate that, she replied, but I'd rather be left alone. They didn't listen. Instead, they laughed louder, stepping closer, their comments growing bolder and more uncomfortable. One of them reached for the sunglasses on her dashboard through the open window. Another leaned against the hood of her car as if he owned it. Relax, sweetheart. The first one sneered. We're just talking. Her heart began to race. This was no longer harmless banter. It was intimidation. She took a slow step back, pulling her phone from her pocket. But one of the bikers snatched it from her hand before she could unlock it. Hey, she shouted, fear and anger mixing in her chest. Give that back. He laughed. What's the rush? Maybe we'll take a selfie together. The others joined in, their laughter ringing in her ears. The gas station attendant glanced their way, but quickly looked away, clearly unwilling to get involved. Sandra felt her throat tighten. For the first time in a long time, she was truly scared. And then, as if the universe had been waiting for the right moment, a black motorcycle turned off the highway and rolled into the station. It wasn't just the bike that drew their attention, it was the man riding it, calm, steady, completely unshaken by the scene before him. He wore a simple black jacket, faded jeans, and a helmet that hid his face. But when he removed it, the air around them shifted. It was Keanu Reeves. He hadn't planned on stopping there. He had been on his way to meet Sandra in Santa Fe, a reunion they had been planning for weeks. But when he spotted her car from the road, something in his gut told him to pull in. And now, standing just a few feet away, he understood why. He saw the fear in her eyes. He saw the phone clutched in the biker's hand. And he saw the way they surrounded her like a pack of wolves circling prey. His voice was calm, but carried an edge sharp enough to cut through steel. Is there a problem here? The leader of the group smirked, stepping forward. No problem, old man. We're just talking. Looks more like you're harassing her, Keanu replied evenly, his eyes never leaving theirs. Now give her back the phone. The biker holding it twirled it between his fingers. And if I don't? Keanu took a slow step forward. He wasn't raising his voice. He wasn't shouting threats. But there was something in his presence, a steady, quiet strength that made the laughter fade. Then we'll have a different kind of conversation, he said softly. The man scoffed and took another step toward him. You think you scare us? Keanu didn't answer. Instead, he held the man's gaze with a calm that was more dangerous than any threat. For a long, tense moment, no one moved. Then, almost reluctantly, the biker tossed the phone back to Sandra. Happy now? He muttered. Almost. Keanu said. Now move away from her car. Something in his tone, not aggressive, but absolute, made even the most arrogant of them hesitate. One by one, they stepped back. But the leader wasn't done. You know, you've got a big mouth for someone standing alone. He sneered. 5 of us. One of you. Keanu's lips twitched into the faintest smile. Then you might want to call a few more. For a heartbeat. It seemed like the situation might explode. Fists clenched. Muscles tensed. The tension was a living thing, hanging heavy in the air. And then, as quickly as it had begun, it ended. The leader spat on the ground and turned away. "Let's go. She's not worth it." They revved their engines, muttered curses under their breath, and sped out of the gas station, their roar fading into the distance. For a long time after they were gone, Sandra stood there trembling, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. Keanu walked up to her, his expression softening as he reached out and touched her shoulder. "Are you okay?" She nodded, though her voice shook. I didn't know what to do. You did everything right," he said gently. "And now it's over." But as she looked into his eyes, she knew it wasn't really over. Something deeper had shifted inside her, inside him, and in the quiet bond they shared. It wasn't just about what had happened. It was about what it revealed. The strength of kindness, the power of respect, and the courage to stand up when it matters most. "Thank you," she whispered. "Always," he replied. And as they drove away from that lonely gas station, neither of them realized that this was only the beginning. What had started as a frightening encounter was about to unravel into something far more dangerous, something that would test their strength, their trust, and their hearts in ways they could never have imagined. Because the bikers weren't done, and the next time, they wouldn't just be after her phone. Asterisk shadows on the highway road stretched endlessly ahead of them, a thin ribbon of asphalt cutting through the desert. The sun was beginning to sink below the horizon, throwing long shadows across the land as Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock drove in silence. The engine hummed softly, and the wind whipped gently through the slightly open windows. On the surface, everything seemed calm, but beneath that quiet exterior, Sandra's hand still trembled slightly on her lap, and her eyes kept darting to the rearview mirror. "You're still shaking," Keanu said gently. Glancing at her, "A little," she admitted. "It's just, I've never felt that kind of fear before." They weren't just messing around, Keanu. It felt different, like they weren't going to stop. He nodded slowly, his hands tightening slightly on the steering wheel. "You're right. They weren't." She looked at him, searching his face for reassurance. "But it's over now, isn't it?" He hesitated, just for a moment, and that hesitation told her everything. "I don't think it's over," he said quietly. "Men like that don't like being challenged, and they definitely don't like being embarrassed." "You think they'll come back?" "I think we should be careful," he replied. That's all. They fell silent again, but the mood had changed. What had once been an ordinary drive now felt like an escape, and the open road, which had always felt freeing, now felt like a rest dot about an hour later. As the last light of day melted into the deep orange of twilight, Sandra noticed something that made her heart skip. "Keanu," she whispered, "that truck behind us. Has it been there for a while?" He glanced into the rearview mirror. A black pickup with tinted windows was following several car lengths behind. At first, it looked like any other vehicle on the road, but then it sped up, slowed down, and then sped up again, matching their movements too closely to be coincidence. "Yeah," Keanu murmured. "I've noticed. Is it them?" He didn't answer, but his jaw tightened. "We're not going home tonight." "What do you mean?" "I mean we're going to take a different route. I want to see if they follow." He took the next exit, a narrow state road that curved through miles of desert. The truck followed. He made another turn onto a side road that led toward an abandoned rest stop. The truck followed again. "It's them," Sandra whispered, her chest tightening. "Yeah," he said quietly. "It's them." The next hour felt like something out of a nightmare. Every attempt he made to lose them, every turn, every sudden lane change, every detour was met with the same result. The truck stayed close, never too near to provoke, but never far enough to disappear. As darkness swallowed the road, the tension grew unbearable. Sandra's breath came in short, shaky bursts. "What do they want?" "Revenge," Keanu said simply. "Humiliation burns deeper than hate, and men like that don't forget." Finally, he pulled into a small roadside diner, a place he remembered from years ago, a quiet spot with plenty of lights and people around. He parked near the front entrance, deliberately under the glow of a street lamp. The truck slowed as it passed, then disappeared into the night. "Maybe they're gone," Sandra whispered, "or maybe they're waiting." Keanu said, "We'll stay here for a while." Inside the diner, the world felt strangely normal. The smell of coffee and frying onions filled the air, and a jukebox hummed softly in the corner. They sat in a booth by the window, where Keanu could keep an eye on the parking lot. "I hate that they still have this power over me," Sandra said, stirring her coffee without drinking it. "I hate that they're still out there. Fear is normal," he replied. "But courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about choosing to stand up anyway." "Easy for you to say," She sighed. You weren't the one surrounded. No, he said gently. But I was the one who watched someone I care about be treated like she didn't matter. And I'll never let that happen again. Her eyes softened. Why did you even stop at that gas station, Keanu? How did you know? He looked down at his cup, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. I didn't know. I just had a feeling. Call it instinct. Call it fate. For a moment, the fear faded. They talked, they laughed, and for a little while, it felt like things were normal again. But that illusion shattered the moment they stepped outside. Their car was gone. The empty parking space stared back at them like a silent warning. No. Sandra whispered, her stomach dropping. No, no, no. Keanu scanned the lot. There were no signs of forced entry, no broken glass. It was as if the car had simply vanished. But they both knew what had happened. It's them, he said quietly. They're sending a message. What do we do now? He took a deep breath, his mind already racing. We report it, and then we plan. Because this isn't about a car anymore. This is about control. They're trying to scare us into backing down, and will we? He looked at her, his eyes steady, his voice firm. Not a chance, but deep inside, even Keanu knew they were facing something far more dangerous than they had imagined. These weren't just angry bikers. They were men with a grudge and a plan, and stealing the car was only their first move. As they stood under the cold glow of the diner's neon sign, a chill ran down Sandra's spine. The road ahead was no longer about escaping danger. It was about confronting it, and the battle that was coming would test not only their courage, but the very bond that held them together. The message in the darkness night felt heavier than usual as Keanu and Sandra stood under the flickering neon lights of the roadside diner, staring at the empty space where their car had been. The distant hum of trucks on the highway was the only sound that broke the silence. The fear that had begun as a whisper at the gas station was now a full, crushing weight on both of them. They stole it. Sandra's voice trembled as she spoke, her hands shaking. They actually stole the car. Keanu's jaw tightened, his eyes scanning the empty lot. It's not just theft, he said. This is a message, a message. They want us to know they're watching, he explained, his tone calm but cold. They want to remind us that they're not done. For a moment, Sandra felt the strength drain from her body. This wasn't a random act anymore. It was deliberate. These men weren't just angry. They were calculating, determined, and dangerous. They called the police, who arrived 20 minutes later. The officers were polite, but detached, taking notes and asking routine questions. One of them, a young patrolman with tired eyes, offered a small piece of advice. If you know who they are, he said, be careful. Guys like that, they don't stop easily. After the report was filed, the two of them were left with no car, no ride, and no real sense of safety. They rented a room at a small motel next to the diner, hoping a few hours of rest would help them think clearly. But sleep didn't come easily. Sandra sat by the window, watching every pair of headlights that passed, flinching at every sound. Keanu paced the room, his mind racing. What if they come here? She asked quietly. Then they'll regret it. He replied without hesitation. Keanu, this isn't just about me anymore, she said, turning to face him. They're after us, and if we keep pushing back, who knows how far they'll go. He stopped pacing and sat down beside her. I'm not going to let fear control our lives, he said gently. But I'm also not going to let them think they can terrorize us without consequences. She nodded, but her heart was heavy. What if they're not just trying to scare us? What if they're trying to hurt us? His eyes softened. Then we'll face it together. The next morning, they woke to a new kind of fear. Slipped under the motel door sometime during the night was a small, folded piece of paper. No envelope, no name. Just a single sentence written in rough, blocky handwriting. Stay out of our way, or next time. It won't just be your car. Sandra's hands went cold as she read it. Oh my God. Keanu took the note from her, reading it twice, then a third time. His jaw set, and when he spoke, his voice was low and deliberate. This ends now. What are you going to do? Find them, and then what? He looked up at her, and though his expression was calm, his eyes burned with determination. Make sure they understand they picked the wrong people. They spent the rest of the day working with the police to track down leads. Keanu had memorized the license plate of the truck that had followed them the night before, and that detail turned out to be crucial. By late afternoon, the authorities had traced the vehicle to a biker clubhouse on the outskirts of a nearby town, a rundown warehouse with boarded up windows and a reputation for trouble. Let the police handle it, Sandra urged. Please, don't go there. I'm not going there to fight, he said softly. I'm going there to talk. Talk, she repeated, skeptical. Sometimes, he said with a faint smile, words can do what fists can't. Despite her protests, she went with him. They followed an unmarked police car to the edge of the property, where officers waited nearby in case things escalated. The warehouse looked even more intimidating up close, walls covered in graffiti, a few broken bikes scattered out front, and loud music leaking from inside. When Keanu stepped through the door, the room went silent. A dozen men turned to look at him, some lounging at tables, others leaning against walls. Their leader, the same man who had mocked Sandra at the gas station, sat in a worn-out armchair near the back, a beer in his hand and a smirk on his face. Look who decided to visit, he sneered. Hollywood's hero. Keanu didn't respond. He walked forward slowly, his presence alone commanding the room's attention. You've made your point, he said calmly. Now, I'm asking you to end it. The leader chuckled, shaking his head. End it? No, no, no. See, you embarrassed us, and that doesn't just go away. You're playing a dangerous game, Keanu warned, and you know it. What are you gonna do? The man taunted. Call the cops. They've tried before. Nothing sticks. Keanu took a step closer, his voice dropping to a low, controlled tone. You think this is about fear. It's not. It's about respect, something you clearly don't understand. And trust me, the world will see what you're doing here. And when it does, you won't be laughing. For a moment, the leader's smirk faltered. Something in Keanu's voice, something unshakable, cut through the room. You don't scare us. The man spat. I'm not here to scare you, Keanu said. I'm here to give you a choice. Walk away now, and this ends tonight. Keep pushing, and you'll regret it. The tension was suffocating. For nearly a full minute, no one spoke. Then, finally, the leader broke the silence. Fine, he growled. We'll back off. Well, you stay out of our business. Done, Keanu said simply, turning to leave. But just as he reached the door, the leader added with a dark laugh, oh, and tell your girlfriend she's lucky. Next time, we won't be so nice. Keanu stopped. For a second, he didn't move. Then he turned back, his eyes colder than they had been all night. There won't be a next time, he said softly. Not for any of you. When they left the warehouse, Sandra was waiting by the car. What happened? She asked, anxiety written all over her face. They said they'd back off, he said, though his voice lacked conviction. Do you believe them? He looked at the darkening sky, his jaw tightening. No, and he was right not to, because later that night, long after they returned to their hotel, a single text message appeared on his phone from an unknown number. You should have walked away when you had the chance. The war was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. The night they came back the following days felt like walking on glass. Every sound outside the window, every unfamiliar car on the street, every stranger's glance held a hint of danger. Sandra Bullock tried to return to her usual routines. Coffee in the mornings, reading by the window, quiet walks in the park, but nothing felt normal anymore. Not after the message. You should have walked away when you had the chance. Those words haunted her. They echoed in her mind when she tried to sleep and crept into her thoughts when she was awake. And though Keanu tried to remain calm, she could see it in his eyes too. The worry, the tension, the readiness for something they both knew was coming. We should leave town for a while, Sandra said one morning over breakfast. Just disappear. Go somewhere they can't find us. Running isn't the answer, Keanu replied gently. If we run, they'll know they won, and they won't stop looking. But if we stay, we take control, he said firmly. We prepare. We stay one step ahead. Sandra wanted to believe him, to draw strength from his quiet confidence. But part of her couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. That somewhere, just out of sight, the bikers were already planning their next move. And she was right. 3 nights later, just after midnight, Keanu woke to a faint noise outside the house. At first, he thought it was the wind, a soft rustle against the window. But then he heard it again. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. His instincts sharpened instantly. He slipped silently out of bed, motioning for Sandra to stay where she was. Don't move, he whispered. He moved through the house barefoot, every sense on high alert. The air felt charged, heavy, like the calm before a storm. He reached the living room and peeked through the curtain. 2 men were standing near the gate. Another was by the garage. And a fourth, the one who had taken her phone at the gas station, was walking slowly toward the front door. They weren't here to scare them anymore. This was different. This was a message, or worse. Keanu grabbed the phone and dialed 911, speaking quickly and quietly. "This is Keanu Reeves. We're being targeted at our home for suspects on the property. Please send units immediately." Then he put the phone down and locked the main doors, moving to block the windows. But they were already inside. The back door, the one leading to the kitchen, exploded inward with a loud crash. Glass shattered, and the heavy footsteps of boots echoed against the tiles. "Stay here," he shouted to Sandra, pulling her into the bedroom closet and shutting the door. "No matter what happens, don't come out until the police arrive." "Keanu, please don't. I'll be fine," he said, his voice steady even though his heart was racing. He stepped back into the hallway, fists clenched, every muscle ready. 3 men were now inside, moving cautiously but confidently. They expected fear. They expected panic. But they didn't expect him. "You picked the wrong house," he said quietly, his voice cutting through the darkness. One of them laughed. "Look at the movie star trying to be a hero. This isn't a movie," Keanu replied, taking a step closer. "And I'm not acting." The first man swung at him, a wide, clumsy punch meant to intimidate. Keanu ducked easily and pushed him hard into the wall. The second lunged, but Keanu sidestepped and caught his arm, twisting it behind his back until he cried out in pain. The third hesitated. "You don't have to do this," Keanu said calmly. "Walk away. No one gets hurt." But he didn't. Instead, he pulled a knife off for a heartbeat. Time seemed to slow. Keanu's pulse thundered in his ears, but his mind was clear. He wasn't afraid, not for himself, but for Sandra, hiding just a few feet away. He needed to end this. The man lunged. Keanu moved. With a swift motion, he grabbed the attacker's wrist, forced the blade from his hand, and shoved him back. The man stumbled and crashed into a table, the knife skidding across the floor. Sirens wailed in the distance. The men froze, panic flashing in their eyes. They weren't expecting police. They weren't expecting resistance. And in that split second of hesitation, they bolted, crashing through the back door and disappearing into the night. Just as flashing red and blue lights flooded the street, officers swarmed the property within minutes, securing the perimeter and searching the surrounding area. 2 of the intruders were caught trying to flee on foot. The other vanished into the desert night. Sandra emerged from the closet shaking, tears streaming down her face. When she saw Keanu standing there, bruised but unharmed, she ran into his arms. "I thought I was going to lose you," she whispered. "You'll never lose me," he said, holding her tight. "Not now. Not ever." The attack made headlines the next morning. Paparazzi swarmed the street. Neighbors offered sympathy, and the police promised an ongoing investigation, but none of it made Sandra feel safer. "They're still out there," she said quietly that afternoon as they sat in the living room, police tape still fluttering. "Outside. And they're not going to stop." "Then neither will we," Keanu replied. "This isn't just about scaring us anymore. This is about justice. Justice. They've crossed a line," he said, "and now it's time to finish this." For the first time since that gas station encounter, there was no fear in his voice, only resolve. And though Sandra's heart still trembled, a small spark of courage lit within her too. Maybe they were right to be afraid, but maybe, just maybe, it was time the bikers learned to be afraid too. What they didn't know was that a bigger revelation was coming, one that would turn this fight into something far deeper than either of them imagined. Because hidden within the police investigation was a name from Keanu's past. And the moment he heard it, everything changed. Asterisk the betrayal behind the calls morning after the break-in. The house was a scene of chaos. Police cars lined the street. News vans crowded the neighborhood, and detectives moved in and out of the front door collecting evidence. Sandra Bullock sat at the kitchen table, a blanket wrapped tightly around her shoulders, a cup of untouched tea cooling in front of her. She looked exhausted, not just from lack of sleep, but from the kind of fear that burrows deep inside and refuses to leave. Keanu Reeves stood by the window, arms crossed, staring at the flashing lights outside. The events of the night still replayed in his mind. The footsteps, the knife, the fight. But something else was bothering him, something deeper, something the police had said just an hour earlier. "We made some progress," Detective Ramos had told him. "Two of the suspects we arrested last night aren't talking, but one of them did. And according to him, someone hired them." Hired. That single word changed everything. This wasn't just random revenge anymore. It wasn't about bruised egos or biker pride. This was planned, coordinated. Someone wanted to hurt them badly and had paid others to do it. Keanu turned from the window and looked at Sandra. "There's something you're not telling me," he said gently. She frowned. "What do you mean?" "Someone's behind this," he said. "Someone with a reason. And I think you know who it might be." She looked away, her fingers tightening around the mug. For a long time, she said nothing. Then, finally, she spoke. "There's only one person who hates me enough to do something like this," she whispered. "And I never thought he'd go this far." "Who?" "Michael." The name hung in the air like a storm cloud. Michael, a producer Sandra had once worked with early in her career. Charming, powerful, and manipulative. He had tried to control her both professionally and personally. When she rejected his advances and spoke out against his behavior, he lost everything: his job, his reputation, his career, and he had blamed her for it ever since. "I heard he was back in the country," she continued quietly, "but I didn't think he'd come after me. I hoped he'd moved on." Keanu's jaw tightened. "Clearly, he hasn't." "Keanu, if it's him, this won't stop. Michael doesn't just want to scare me. He wants to destroy me." He walked over to her and took her hands in his. "That we stop him first." Over the next few days, the investigation deepened. The police confirmed that the bikers had received money wire transfers from an offshore account linked to a shell company. And that company, as it turned out, traced back to a familiar name, Michael D. Reynolds. But just as they were piecing the truth together, something unexpected happened. One evening, a thick envelope arrived at their door. No return address, no sender. Inside were dozens of photographs. Candid shots of Sandra and Keanu taken over the last few weeks. At the diner, at the motel, even inside their home. Through windows they thought were private. And on the back of the final photo, a shot of them sitting together on the couch, was a handwritten note. "You ruined my life. Now I'll ruin yours." Sandra's hand shook as she read it. "He's watching us. He's still watching." "Good," Keanu said quietly. "That means he's getting sloppy." She stared at him, confused. "Good. How is that good?" "Because now we know he's close," he explained. "And if he's close, we can end this." Keanu contacted a private security firm. Former intelligence officers and investigators who specialized in high-risk protection and counter-surveillance. Within 24 hours, their house was equipped with hidden cameras, sensors, and motion detectors. Every movement on the property would now be tracked. But Michael wasn't hiding anymore. 2 nights later, Keanu received a phone call from a blocked number. He answered cautiously. "Hello? Hello, Keanu." The voice on the other end was smooth, calm, and chillingly familiar. "It's been a long time, Michael," Keanu said quietly. "I see you're playing hero now." Michael chuckled. "How noble. How predictable. But you can't save her from everything. Not this time. Whatever you're planning, it ends now," Keanu said. "The police are already on you. Walk away before it's too late." "Too late." Michael laughed, a low, cruel sound. "It's already too late. You took everything from me when you stood by her. And now I'm going to take everything from you." The line went dead. Keanu lowered the phone slowly, his heart pounding. This was no longer just a threat. This was a promise. The next evening, they decided to attend a charity gala that Sandra had committed to weeks earlier. She didn't want to go. The idea of being in public made her sick, but Keanu insisted. "If we hide, we lose," he said. "And we're not losing." The event was glamorous, filled with flashing cameras, elegant gowns, and polished smiles. But beneath the glitter, there was a tension neither of them could shake. Keanu's eyes scanned the crowd constantly, his instincts on edge. And then, just as the speeches began, he saw him. Standing near the back of the ballroom, dressed in a tailored suit and a smug smile, was Michael. He wasn't hiding anymore. He wanted them to see him. Keanu's single quotes as fists clenched at his sides. He took a step forward, but Sandra grabbed his hand. "Don't," she whispered. "That's what he wants." But before either of them could react, chaos erupted. A loud crash echoed from the lobby. Then another. Guests screamed as smoke began to fill the air. People ran in every direction, tripping over tables and chairs. Keanu grabbed Sandra's hand and pulled her toward the nearest exit, shielding her with his body as they moved. "This way," he shouted, guiding her through the panicked crowd. But just as they reached the door, a shadow stepped in front of them. "Michael, going somewhere?" he sneered. Keanu moved fast, grabbing Sandra and shoving her behind him. "This ends tonight," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. Michael's single quotes as smile faded. "You have no idea how far I'm willing to go. You have no idea how far I will go to protect her." For a moment, they stood there, two men locked in silent hatred, the weight of years of anger and vengeance between them. And then Michael spoke, his voice low and dangerous. "She took everything from me," he whispered, "so I'll take the one thing she loves most." Keanu's blood turned to ice. "Try it," he said, "and it'll be the last thing you ever do." But before he could move, Michael disappeared into the smoke, vanishing into the chaos like a ghost. When they finally made it outside, police and fire crews were already flooding the scene. But Michael was gone again, and now they knew the truth. This wasn't about intimidation anymore. This was war. And the final battle was coming. The reckoning night of the gala changed everything. The moment Michael vanished into the smoke, Keanu knew there was no going back. This wasn't about fear anymore. This wasn't even about revenge. It was about ending a war that had already gone too far. And this time, he wasn't going to wait for Michael to strike first. For days, detectives worked around the clock. They reviewed security footage, traced phone calls, and followed money trails. But Michael was always one step ahead, changing locations, using fake identities, staying hidden. The bikers were arrested and charged, but none of them would talk. Michael had disappeared into the shadows, and it was as if the earth had swallowed him whole. "He's not going to stop," Sandra said one night as she stared out the window of their safe house. "Not until one of us is gone. Then it's time to finish this," Keanu replied quietly. "Finish it." "How by taking away the one thing he's been using against us," Keanu said. "Our fear. He's been hiding behind it, feeding off it. We stop living scared, and we take control. Keanu, he's dangerous, so am I when it comes to protecting you." And he meant it. To days later, a breakthrough came. The security team discovered that Michael had rented a private warehouse under a fake company name on the outskirts of Albuquerque. Hidden cameras placed nearby showed a pattern, men coming and going at odd hours, vehicles arriving in the middle of the night, and shipments of unknown cargo. It was clear Michael was planning something. "We call the police," Sandra said. "We don't go anywhere near that place." But Keanu shook his head. "If we wait, he disappears again. And the next time he shows up, it might be too late. And if you go there and something happens, then something happens," he said softly. "But it ends with me, not with you." She grabbed his hand, her eyes brimming with tears. "Don't do this alone." He squeezed her hand gently. "I'm not. You're the reason I'm doing it at all." That night, with police on standby and the security team tracking every movement, Keanu approached the warehouse. He was unarmed, deliberately so. This wasn't about vengeance. This was about closure, about facing the man who had spent years trying to destroy them. The warehouse was eerily quiet when he stepped inside. The air smelled of gasoline and rust. Faint light leaked from a single lamp in the center of the room. And there, sitting on a folding chair with a glass of whiskey in his hand, was Michael. "I knew you'd come," Michael said, smiling without warmth. "You always do." "This ends tonight," Keanu said. "Does it?" Michael laughed. "You think walking in here like some hero changes anything? I've already won." "No," Keanu replied calmly. "You lost the moment you let hatred define you." Michael stood slowly, his eyes cold and hard. "She ruined me, Keanu. I had everything, power, respect, and then she opened her mouth, and it was all gone." "Because you deserve to lose it," Keanu said. "You abused your power. You hurt people. You thought you could control everyone around you. And when you couldn't control her, you tried to destroy her." Michael's lips curled into a bitter smile. "And yet here we are. You, the knight in shining armor. Me, the villain. Tell me, does she ever thank you for playing her savior?" "This isn't about thanks," Keanu said, stepping closer. "This is about doing what's right." "What's right?" Michael scoffed. "What's right is that she suffers, that you suffer, that you both lose everything the way I did." Keanu shook his head. "You already lost everything. And not because of her, because of you. And deep down, you know that." For a brief moment, something flickered in Michael's eyes, doubt. maybe even regret. But then it was gone, replaced by rage. I could end you right now, he hissed. I could walk away from this and still win. Then do it, Keanu said quietly, taking another step forward. But know this, if you do, you prove everything we've said about you. That you're weak, that you're pathetic, that you're a man who blames the world for his own mistakes. Michael's hand trembled as he reached into his jacket. For a heartbeat, Keanu thought it was over. But instead of a weapon, Michael pulled out a folded photograph. One of him and Sandra from years ago, taken during the project that had ended his career. I love her, he whispered. And she ruined me. No, Keanu said softly. You ruined yourself. And with those words, something in Michael broke. The anger that had fueled him for years seemed to drain from his body. His shoulders slumped, and the photograph slipped from his hand to the floor. Sirens wailed in the distance. Police cars surrounded the building, and when officers stormed inside, Michael didn't resist. He simply raised his hands and let them take him away. Weeks passed. The trial was swift and decisive. Michael was charged with conspiracy, harassment, and attempted assault. He faced years behind bars, and though the legal battle was exhausting, Sandra and Keanu faced it together, side by side. Hand in hand. When it was finally over, they stood outside the courthouse, watching as the man who had tried to destroy them was driven away in handcuffs. It's done, Sandra whispered. It's over, Keanu said. So why do I still feel like I'm holding my breath? Because you've been living in fear for so long, he said gently. And now, for the first time, you don't have to. She turned to him, her eyes soft. I couldn't have done this without you. He smiled. You never needed me to fight for you. I just reminded you that you could fight for yourself. She laughed through tears and leaned her head on his shoulder. So what now? Now, he said, wrapping his arm around her, we live. No more running. No more fear. Just life. And they did. They took road trips without looking over their shoulders. They stopped checking every shadow. They built a life out of peace, not fear, one where love was stronger than hate, where kindness had the final word, and where resilience had written the ending to a story that once seemed hopeless. And every now and then, when they passed a small gas station on the side of a lonely road, they would look at each other and smile, because that was where everything had changed. What began as a moment of cruelty had become a story of courage. What started with fear had ended with strength, and what once felt like the end had, in truth, been a new beginning.